one.
Right, so in this video now, we're just going to look at the general ledger accounts that you can be asked to do. So you may have been asked to do a general journal entry for a balance day adjustment, and then you have to do your general ledger account for that account. So we're going to do a couple to show you how it's done. So first of all, I'm going to do the accrued income and dividends received one. So remember, with your general ledger, the first column's date, then we've got particulars, then we've got debit, credit, and then we've got the balance. So we're going to do one for dividends received, and one for accrued income. Right, so we're going to start with dividends received. Now, the first thing that we need to know is there a balance in the original trial balance? So that's the first thing we're going to do. Is there a balance in the original trial balance? And for our dividends received, there was, and it was for $1,000. And it's on the credit side because it's income, so we're going to put 1,000 and then the type of balance it is. Right, the second thing that you need to know is, was there a balance day adjustment? Yes, there was. We had some dividends still owing of $1,200, and in our general journal, we credited it by $1,200. Because it's an income account, we need to do a credit to increase it. Now, in our particulars, we're going to put the other account that was involved, accrued income, and we're going to credit it by $1,200, which was the amount. Just check that I got that right. Yep. And we're just going to increase it to $2,200. Then the next thing we've got to do is, do we need to close this? Yes, it's an income account, so we're going to close it to income summary. And to close it, we want it to go to zero, so we're going to debit it by $1,200, leaving us with a zero balance. Accrued income, on the other hand, we created that one in the trial balance, so it didn't have an original balance. So we're not going to start with balance. It did have a balance day adjustment, the one that we did for dividends received. So we're going to write dividends received here because that's the other account that's involved. What we call the contra account always goes in the particulars for tracing. And we know that dividends received, accrued income was a debit of $1,200. Okay. Bringing us $1,200 debit. Now, this is a current. Accrued income is a current asset. So therefore, we're not going to close this off, okay, because it's an asset, not an income or an expense. Okay, so that's an example of an income one. Now we're going to do an example of an expense one. So we're going to deal with prepayment and advertising. Okay, so we're going to do advertising and prepayment. Okay, so advertising. We're going to go and check, does it have an original balance? Go up to the trial balance, find advertising. Yes, it had an original balance of $19,000, so we're going to put that in. So it's going to have a balance. Now remember, with your balances, they go right across. They go right across to the balance column, and that's going to be $19,000, and it's going to be a debit. And we had a balance day adjustment. We know that because we did the prepayment. So it's going to be a credit to advertising because it's going to decrease because it should be less than $3,000. The particular is prepayment. It's going to be debited by $3,000, so it decreases. So we're going to have $16,000 in advertising. And advertising is an expense, so we are going to close it off to income summary. and we're going to credit it by 16,000, so it goes to 0. Prepayments. Now, this one, we know we created it, so it's not going to have an opening balance, but it is going to be, we used it in our journal entry. So advertising as the contra account, and if we go back and look at it, it tells us that we debit prepayment by 3,000. Okay, 3,000. And we know that prepayments are current assets, so we're not going to close it off. So the key thing to remember here is we only close off income and expenses. And we just need to, the 3 steps when we're closing an account is, does it have an opening balance? Is there a balance to adjustment involved? Do we need to close it off? The last one we'll look at is our drawings in our capital account. Okay, so for our drawings, we're going to go and check, did we have an original balance? The trial balance, yes, 59,000. So the contra account's capital, because that's what we're, balance, because we're starting with the balance. Got ahead of myself there. So we're starting with balance. And it's 59,000. And it's a debit. And we're going to close this off to capital. So it gets closed off to capital. Okay, so that means we're going to credit it by 59,000, which is what we did in the journal entry, and it becomes 0. Our capital will have an original balance of 190,000. And it's a credit because it's on the credit side. And we just did drawings to it, so we're going to debit it for the drawings. And we work it out. So we're going to do 190,000 minus 59,000 is 131,000. And we will actually, and remember up when we did the journal entries, we closed off income summary. And because I don't know whether this is a debit or credit, I'm just going to put that in just to remind you that capital would have income summary closed off to it as well. So that's the ledger accounts, what you need to do. Again, practice is what is really important. So make sure you go into module 1 or look at the sheet I gave you regards accounting for balance day transactions for the exam. That has a whole lot of exercises for you to practice. Some in your workbook, some are old exam papers, and the interactive ones online in Teams, which allows you to keep practicing. So remember, practice is really important. It's the only way you can become familiar enough with it so that you do well in the exam.